Okay, so good evening and welcome to Turn Gallery. We are doing this event as part of Pride Month, which is supported by the US Embassy here. The show you're sitting in right now is called Balancing Act. It's a show by Jodie Minnis and Drew Weech. And the premise of the show is really about the idea of performativity in the tourism industry and how, as Bahamians, we're very often asked to perform certain roles in order to deliver a product that is acceptable to the visitors. So we thought for Pride Month, we'd carry on the conversation around sort of performativity and expectations and stereotypes and things like that, and try to wrap that into the conversation. So we've invited Kevanté Cash and Tyrico Bonnaby to be our speakers tonight, and it's just going to be a conversation between them about gender and performativity in Bahamian society. So I'm just going to give them a quick introduction. Kevanté A.C. Cash, who is sitting over there in the beautiful jacket, is an Afro-Bahamian creative writer, poet, and arts journalist from Nassau, Bahamas. They received a master's in creative writing and poetry in Manchester, UK. An Afro-feminist, they make their activism an integral part of their work. Indeed, their poems and thinking are nurtured by their critical approach to society's sexism and racism. A believer in unfuckwithable joy as resistance, I like that. They prioritize pleasure as an act of resistance. They also discuss gender and sexuality juxtaposed to their religious upbringing and use their writing to uplift the voices of marginalized communities. Tyrico Bonnaby, who is they, is a multidisciplinary artist, educator, and youth leader born on Crooked Island, the Bahamas, one of the ones I have not been to yet. I'm going to have to go soon. Barnaby, known as Ty B, works primarily as a visual poet and content creator, working in the realm of social media. He's published digital poetry books and launched his first poetry showcase in May 2023. He's also a member of the Bahamas National Youth Choir and is actively a part of the Dundas family since January 2023, performing in 3 productions this year alone. For those that don't know, the Dundas is our main performing arts, theatrical performing arts center. Barnaby's volunteerism and activist work centers advocacy for the voices of marginalized groups of people. He serves as an ambassador for the USAID, or do you say USAID? I don't know how you say that. USAID, and is an active participant of the US Embassy's creative team for Pride Month. In 2021, he received the prestigious Director's Cup Award and the Community Volunteerism Award from the Bahamas National Youth Awards. Tyreeka Barnaby, Ty B, uses his platform to educate and inspire young people to embrace their individualism and to find freedom of expression. He seeks constant evolution and uses art to send a message of freedom, especially for queer individuals with whom he identifies. So at Turn, we try, just as we did at the NAGB, and we still do, try to create spaces where all Bahamians are welcome, including our queer family. Lots of us have queer members of our family, and I think Turn is known as being a space where we have a lot of queer artists and we do a lot of programming. So we just wanted to have this kind of informal conversation tonight. I've got some questions that I'm going to give to you guys, but then you can just like have your chit chat amongst yourselves. And if anyone in the audience wants to ask anything or say anything, please feel free. So the first question is, in your own words, can you define what gender identity means to you?
Sure, I can go first. Good night, everyone. I think I would define gender identity just as like a sense or understanding of one's own like gender within their bodies, and just like how they feel internally. And sometimes that manifests as like an upgrade in pronouns. So instead of like being, if you were assigned like male at birth and then for most of your life you went as he, him, you'd include like they, them. And that is like just telling of how you would feel like inwardly. Maybe you're like gender fluid or gender queer or no gender at all. So like agender. That's how I would define gender identity.
I think I will define gender identity as, like Kevanté said, your personal experience with your gender, your understanding of what gender is to you. It could coincide with your given gender at birth. So it might coincide with that, or it could differ from that. So it's all about your personal experience of what you understand gender for you to be.
Yeah, I think with that I'd like add yeah, gender identity really is all about the feeling. And I think for a lot of like within Bahamian society, like feelings, emotions kind of aren't really like honored and considered in terms of just like how we choose to identify and express ourselves. So I think like with gender identity, it really is honoring like this is how I feel regardless of what like I've been taught or like what I have been made like conditioned to believe is so.
Yeah, so like basically gender identity, basically just like honoring what you're feeling and expressing that, and just owning what you're feeling and exploring that, and going through the ropes of what you think you are, despite what society wants you to be, in a sense.
Oh.
How do you delineate between gender expression and gender identity? Like we said, gender identity is your personal experience with gender, and I feel like gender expression is how you choose to express yourself. So you could identify as male, female, non-conforming, trans, but your gender expression could be different ways that you express yourself in society that doesn't conform to social norms or the social construct of what society wants us to do, or how they want us to express ourselves. Yes.
Yeah, I thought about this question a lot. How do I delineate between gender identity and gender expression? So, like, I identify as like a gender fluid or a gender queer person. The umbrella term is non-binary, and so I think like my identity and my expression kind of like differ a lot in a lot of ways. For the most part, since I have been on like this gender journey, I've been leaning more towards like expressing myself in an androgynous way. And recently I've been coming back to femininity just because I've just been feeling called to like play with it and experiment with it. Because for a long time, like I had in my brain, like femininity is this binary thing that's only supposed to be like how women and feminine, like men and people express themselves. But it's like, a non-binary person could also be feminine as well, or they could play with it and you could mix it up and you could have like femininity, like so I think like for me, I delineate in terms of just like it really goes back to the feeling, like honoring how it is that I feel. Like if I know, okay, so I'm like a planner. I like plan a lot of like just most of my life. So it's like, okay, I know I was supposed to be to this event today. I had in my brain, okay, I think I want to be feminine. And then I woke up this morning and I was like, no, I kind of feel like just putting on jeans and a jacket. And so like really it's just like leaning into how it is that I feel that day. And so that's how I like delineate, just really just like paying attention to how I feel in my body, paying attention to like what it is that I'm trying to give off, like what it is that I'm trying to like, yeah, express within myself as well.
Yeah, like piggybacking off of what Kevanté said, I think it's all about the feeling. So like she said, like they said, that you're planning your outfit out, like me myself too. I thought about the space. I'm thinking, what do I want to feel that day, what I want to express that day to the crowd that's coming. So have all these outfits lay out, and at the end, final hour, all them back in the closet, just put on something that you're feeling, and it ended up matching. So so it's all about your feeling, and just going back to how you feel, making sure that you're comfortable and making sure that you feel okay in what you're expressing that day and that moment. Okay. Okay. Me and Kavante had this conversation earlier, but do you think there is a pressure to perform to your gender identity? Do you think that there is a pressure to perform to your gender identity? Honestly, yes. In majority of the spaces that I frequent within society, expects me to show up as a masculine male, especially being in education, especially working with young people. They expect you to show up and to perform to what society wants you to perform as. So this protector, this provider, don't show emotion, just big and macho. So I think it is an added layer of pressure, especially when you're trying to work around yourself, and especially trying to go through the spectrum of what you identify as and how you want to express yourself in these spaces. So it is an added pressure trying to conform to these spaces and still be respectful to like save your job and be respectful to people that are quite frankly paying your bills. So you have this actual layer of pressure to perform in these spaces.
The question was, do you think there's a pressure to perform my gender identity? Yeah. So I use they, them, and she, her pronouns interchangeably. When Ty and I were talking earlier, I was telling them that when I lived in the UK, I primarily only went by they, them, and it's just because of like first world culture, primarily only being around queer and trans people, primarily only befriending, dating queer and trans people. So like they understand, they get it. When I got back home, it was such like a humbling experience because I coming back to binary Bahamas. And like the first like 6 months like the first 6 months, it was so frustrating to like my core friends got it. When I say my core friends, I mean the three friends that like I go by and they come by me. Like they got it. And everyone else, it was just like it was just frustrating. Um and then I realized like that frustration was coming from like an egotistical place because like I in a binary Bahamas. The deprogramming that I would have done is a privilege, and everyone doesn't have that privilege to like deconstruct these things that like are so like easy for me to understand. So with my gender identity, I think like around specific like groups of people that I feel connected to. So like biological family, for instance, I perform she her. And I think that within that performance, like there's nothing that's like disingenuous in that. Like I know that I come from a very religious family. Like I'm the stereotypical queer PK. Like my granddad was a deacon, my dad was a bishop, my mommy is a bishop, my uncles are pastors, my cousins are pastors. Like I come from that like household where this day damn thing isn't gonna work. Like the very, very like androgynous thing isn't gonna work. And I love them and I want their love and I would eat their good food. So when I go in their house, I perform she her, right? When I'm around my chosen family, it's either or because I think that they get it, they understand, and um, I could be like she they or I could be like they them. Sometimes I even like I'm she her. I'm still trying to figure out what that means because I think um like stereotypical she her is very like the dresses, the heels, and all of that, and that's gorgeous and that's lovely. But my she her is like dresses and like boots and like skirts and like sneakers and stuff like that. So I think there isn't necessarily a pressure to perform, but there's more so like I understand what the performance is about, if that makes sense.
And I think I wanted to jump back to what you said too about different spaces, and it's also allowing yourself grace as you figure it out too, and allowing yourself grace in these spaces of your chosen family and the people are trying to meet you halfway and understand your journey as a queer individual. As you identify as they, them, he, him, she, her, is allowing, taking that pressure and giving yourself grace as you figure it out, and then giving them grace as they embrace you while you embrace them trying to figure it out. So I think when we step into that and remove this layer of being perfectionists in our identity and being non-binary people, I think that allows us to move freely in these spaces and allow us to connect also with people and connect also with ourselves as
Um, the cultural stereotypes that influence our understanding of femininity and masculinity and New Providence. I think it goes back to what like Ty said when you said earlier, like how you present, like anticipate the specific thing from you. So like yeah, for me being tall and like I get like I'm learning to swallow the whole "you look like a model" compliment. I've been getting that since I was like a kid, like since I was maybe like 16. It used to make me really uncomfortable. Um, but now it's just like it is what it is, kinda. It's like so they see me and they expect me to be like in I guess like the model-esque clothing. But and like I said, like I can do it with it. Sometimes I do find comfort in like the flowy long dresses. Um, but I think like the stereotypes just kind of come from just perception. Like it's like you perceive a bigger body person and you anticipate that they're supposed to act a particular kind. You have a dark skinned person and you anticipate that they're supposed to act in love in a particular kind of way, right? Same thing with like a feminine man or masculine, and you perceive it. So when they act in the opposite, it's like kind of going against what you are communicating to me that you're supposed to act. It's like I just have clothes on my body, you know.
going back to what I said too, it's just these unrealistic expectations. Nowadays, if I walk into a room, they see me as this full figured man with broad broad shoulders, so they expect me to maybe be a security guard. I know there was an incident where I was in a place dressed head to toe, with brim hat, and women asked me if I was a security guard. Literally. So they expect you to come into places and to perform to certain stereotypes that they have. So they expect you to be masculine. They expect you to be this provider, this protector, this something that you're not. So when you go against that, it's almost like you're insulting them or insulting what they grew up with, insulting their family values, and it more so like you're attacking what they grew up with. And even though it's not even it's personal to you, but they take it as you're trying to fight against the family values. So yeah.
How does being non-binary influence my gender expression? I guess I think for a long time, like I understood non-binariness again to be like which was still binary, ironically. Yeah, like I want to say the earlier part of this year, something came in my spirit where I was like, it's a feminine year for me. I don't know why that is, but I'm just kind of tired of being in my masculinity. Like I kind of tired of like, and when I say masculine, I mean like going after things, chasing things, trying to pound for what I want, respect and relax and do things. Like I wanted to be like magnetized and like in a spiritual sense for me specifically, like that like includes like how I adorn myself. So I'm like, okay, I need to go in the back of the closet and like pick out the skirts and like play with it and see what this is and like see what this would like look like. So this year specifically, I've been like restructuring what it means to be like, I guess, like a femme-ish, like gender fluid person. Like big influences for me right now definitely is like Janelle Monáe. I've been watching a lot of their interviews of them like talking about how like I mean we understood at least some of Janelle Monáe understood like the system, like and like their parents working class culture and all of that, and now they coming into just kind of like this free to titties kind of era for them, and they're like, why can't like me like free to titties be non-binary? Like why can't we like show my life be non-binary? Why can't this be non-binary? Why does non-binary have this very specific thing that within itself is binary? Um, I don't know if the people around me specifically have pressured me into being one kind of like gender fluid more than I have like thought because of like my Pinterest board. This is what I should like look like. There also is like the fear of like misperception that is obviously out of my control. Like I can't control how anybody perceives. Right? I look like a black woman, right? Sometimes I and like I contend with black womanhood. Other times I'm just like, this is exhausting. I'm gonna put this to the side, right? Um, and I think like that's the beauty in my gender fluidity. But yeah, I guess I'm just like deconstructing and unlearning that like non-binary is whatever I want it to be. This really is just it goes back to the feeling.
I think it's more so of unlearning what you think non-binary is. So it's more so like going back to the Pinterest board. So non-binary people, you're seeing men in dresses, seeing flowers in their hair. So when I first came into identifying as non-binary. I thought that what I was supposed to be within my spaces, but I understood, I'm now that non-binary is just my personal experience, how I want to express myself. So if I want to wear um, uh, a scarf and a skirt, maybe with a button-down shirt. If I want to shave my face, keep my beard. If I want to shave my head, I'll wear a bald head. So, so just my expression and my understanding of what I want my non-binary experience to be. With being in the Bahamas, being non-binary, yeah, especially being in society and identifying or being conceived as male, it limits my non-binary journey as well. So in a lot of spaces, even though I'm, I'm very much comfortable with my sexuality, it's still I don't feel like I could go in certain spaces as I want to, or so it limits me, but it's still in the sense of exploring what non-binary means to me and what that is, because it's different from yes.
I have a family member who came out, and it was he said to me, "I hate having to wear these clothes sometimes," and I said, well, "Why?" Because it's what's expected. If I'm declared as, I feel like I have to. So I think that he feels that sense of having to perform because other people will want that, and I find that like really hard to wrap my head around. That there's this limit being free to just like watch the skirt easily, actually, right? So those are the things I'm trying to always constantly figure out in my head. Does that make any sense?
Just to touch on that too, about going back and unlearning everything. I know going through college and coming into being an educator, you have to present yourself very masculine. So, as even though I'm wearing, okay, I found crotch like of wearing sweaters. So I wear a very feminine sweater with button-down shirt, suit pants, suit shoes. So I tried avenue to still make myself comfortable, even though I'm presenting as binary in these spaces that want me to present binary. So or I'll wear like bright color shirts, maybe plaid pants. So you still try to find avenues to express yourself in your non-binary journey. Still, yeah. Okay. Could you speak on your non-binary of navigating gender expression is different from New Providence, Army Island? Totally different. um, I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and it was alarming in a sense. When I say that, because a lot of people see Nassau or New Providence as being unsafe for people, but being quite honest, I feel like I have more freedom to express myself in New Providence in particular spaces where I could meet people like me and have the conversations who will embrace it. Then going to the family island where I'm required to go to church on a Sunday and wear a full suit and go to these bars where these masculine men who fish for a living and whatnot. So I don't think there's much room to navigate my non-binary experience. And I know when every time I go back home, it's literally only for like 3 days. So I go there, spend time with my mom, and then come back. Because when you go there, even though you have this peace, quiet. You go to the beach, you're enjoying your family life, you're experiencing everything you experienced as a child, you're enjoying yourself while you're there. It's still like you're missing something. It's still like you're looking over your shoulder of someone figuring you out, even though so it's almost like someone's watching you because on family islands, everybody knows each other's business. Everybody knows someone. If you pass someone's house at 1 o'clock in the morning, they know where you're going. So, so it's. I feel like I have more freedom in a sense to express myself as non-binary or express myself how I want to in Providence on the family island.
Can't really speak to family island living. Um, yeah, I only know now. So I guess like I understood the question to kind of mean like how do you navigate gender expression like with um around like traditional people versus non-traditional people. And I think that like my answer just kind of goes back to this, like, my performance around my biological family versus my performance in my chosen family. Um, my biological family is very much like, traditional. Um, and I guess like I'm just deconstructing what performance to me and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. And I don't necessarily like you perform to survive, right? Um, message of like Jody and Drew's show. At least how I perceived it, like you perform to survive. And so I think like if I want to be around my uncle and I want to eat good food and I want to engage in conversation like I do in the she her, like I gonna put on the short skirt. Maybe I have to put on heels with it because that's the thing. When I put on sneakers, I'll put on like, it is what it is kind of. And I see that as like this is one aspect of my true self. I've also been like kind of like exploring and unraveling like this idea of like, is there a singular true self or is there like many true self? Because like that's like popular language, queer culture, like unlayering to get to the true self. And it's like, but there could be many true selves because like how I show up in conversation, it's not gonna be how I show up in conversation with Denise. It's not gonna be how I show up in conversation with my brother kid, and it's not gonna how I be in conversation with my mommy. Like everybody in different spaces and like maybe I could remove 5 masks with Latino, we could remove 2 masks with my brother, and we could remove 1 mask with my mom. And I think that even though all of that is a performance, it's not exhausting because I want to meet my brother where he's at. I want to meet my mommy where she's at. I want to meet Latino where they're at. So I think is yeah, like the gender expression within it is why for me, like I'll always be gender fluid because it's like it's really, it pushes and pulls, it ebbs and flows, like it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, and it's also allowing yourself to have different layers too. So, like you said, in different spaces, you be a part of it. So I know with my mother, we've had a very rough relationship, but I feel like as I grew older and she's coming around to seeing me as an individual, she's still seeing and accepting me for me in a sense. Certain things she will never understand because she didn't grow up with certain conversations. She didn't grow up with certain, I would say, certain ideologies around her. So all of this is still going to be new to her when you try to have a conversation, and a lot of outbursts or anger that she might give towards you when you have these conversations might not be personal to you, but more so personal to her understanding what's going on. So it's also allowing yourself grace and giving the grace to these people in spaces, meeting them where they are, allowing, not allowing that to limit your journey as to explore yourself, and just take it one day at a time. Yes.
That I commonly face like within society, like Bahamian society. Um, yeah, I think it goes back to just like the being assigned people at birth and then like not always identifying as like woman. Like so because most people in my life know this about me. I think that they perceive me as like I always have to be androgynous, right? And they probably not even care. Like they just saying kevanté. Kevanté is kevanté. So I think like I don't know if I don't know if it's like people more than it is like how I perceive myself. I always gonna be misperceived. That's just something that I'm still learning how to swallow. Um, but yeah, like the misconceptions that I have around myself and my body is just kind of like, will I still be non-binary if I kind of put on something or more censor myself? Kinda, yeah. I guess a more interesting example of this would be like, okay, when there are spaces that are primarily catering to women, like half women, do I go there and say, okay, hi, my name is Kevan, and I use she pronouns? Do I not say my pronouns at all? Do I present in a particular kind of way? Like, can I show up to this like event for like women's rights? Because I support women's rights and women's wrongs, but I don't always identify as a woman. So can I be here right now? Like it's just that constant battle in my head of like which space is mine. And I think that has more to do with me and just like me accepting and understanding myself. Like Ty and I were talking about like acceptance earlier and just like how for the last like month I've been just trying to accept a lot of things, not necessarily about myself, but about like what was like in the past, like what happened in the past, and how like because was struggling to accept the past, like how that actually contaminates the present. And it's like, okay, yeah, there was a time when my mom did not accept me, but she has said multiple times that she does. She's apologized multiple times. So when am I going to get over it? So that I can be present with her and enjoy whatever time we have together, like that kind of thing. So it's kind of like that. Like my misconceptions kind of come from a place of I think that everyone is like judging me in a particular kind of way when people not even doing that at all.
And I think that removing that added pressure that you put on yourself to be in these core spaces, and even though you might identify as non-binary, you don't always have to present in this way that you think these core spaces want you to present as. So you could always show up how you want to show up, and I always feel like there's like you said, it's always it's a personal misconception. Also, and what people in core spaces have, I think I put that extra pressure that you have to be this outgoing, this bubbly personality, this I know, just this artsy, carefree individual all the time. And the persons who know that I'm a go-getter, but I'm still trying to unpack that fighter spirit that I have in me and allow myself to be present, like you say, and accepting your past for what it is, and allowing yourself to be fully present in what's happening around you. And I feel like in certain spaces, I do have to sense myself, especially saying, okay, more so this entire year, I've been involved in numerous projects. So I know when I go in certain spaces, even though they might not, yes, actually, what you is not a number one priority for them. What you present is most important. But I feel like I have to put pressure on myself. I have to go in these spaces and be like, okay, be him more so dressed, more relaxed, baggy clothes, not put so much attention on myself to allow myself to really navigate these spaces and navigate certain conversations and try to eliminate the possible question of what you identify as and the question of what's not. Try to eliminate pressure on myself in these spaces. But it just goes back to giving yourself grace and the sense of removing this extra layer and just showing up how you want to show up and space to accept you for who you are.
Either. So this came off something you said about the pressure, not the pressure, but like you feel like you have to be bubbly all the time. And in your bio, you spoke about, using joy as an act of resistance. And something that might ramble a bit because I'm trying to phrase the question. Something that happened as a parent was that my first go-to was fear because so many stories I'm fed are about trauma. Um, how do you how do, how do you analyze like work against that? Also, that pressure of that you actually always now have to appear joyful because that's what you want to present to give other youth and other people permission to be themselves. Do you find that is a like a pressure for you sometimes and a pressure that you can't live up to? And what do we need to do to actually escape the idea that the only path is trauma?
Um, yeah, so I've been trying to like normalize like all sorts of emotions. So I think like fear is like a super like normal thing to first like experience when coming into the realization of your queerness and like oh shit, will like accept this part of me. Um, Especially like given the society that we live in. Like things are still happening to queer people like daily, like harassment. You know what I mean? And even worse. So I think fair is like a super normal thing to like experience at first. The thing in my bio when I was like, I use unfuckwittable joy as resistance. Yeah. That was an era. I think I'm still there though. Um, and I think like the joy aspect, like pleasure, just as a means to kind of like navigate this very complicated life. It comes from actually. So that's the aspect of Black womanhood that I absolutely appreciate and love. That despite everything, Black women can still be beautiful and family and smile and like I guess just show up and be there, even despite all the things like the tiredness. Um, so your question was like, how do we navigate to perform joy? Um, I don't know if I like specifically feel pressure. Um, because like I'm very Pisces, so I'm very like moody. And I think that like I just honor where I am. Like if I'm not in the mood to be joyous, I will not be joyous. Like you're not gonna get joy from me that day. Um, but if I am in a space to be, ah, I'm like full of love and sweetness, and like God is good and life is great, then like that's what you get in that day. Um, and yeah, like honestly, like this from the side of the question, it just keeps kind of like coming back to the feeling of just like honoring what it is that you feel, and understanding that sometimes the feeling can contrast like beliefs that you hold in the present and beliefs that you held in the past, and maybe even future beliefs, but like that was the present moment. So in the present moment, like I feel like joy is what I need to lean into as my like tool as a weapon and sure. So I don't think it's a pressure more than it's just like what I like lean on in the here and now.
And also, I don't think it's pressure. Going back to the fair statement, I feel like, again, going back to what we mentioned before, accepting your past and accepting your present. And I feel like fair is what a lot of us came into our queerness with. So a lot of us, our first taste of freedom in a sense was we faced repercussions and it instilled some sense of fear in us. And I feel like as we navigate ourselves through this journey, joy and the bubbly meeting people is something that you within yourself gives yourself hope. When you meet other people and young queer individuals, you give them that sense of hope that okay, even though you're feeling fear and what's not, you still have a lot to be thankful for, and also a lot you still could embrace within yourself as a queer individual. Within myself, I don't feel like it's a pressure. I feel like I enjoy meeting individuals and having conversations with them. I enjoy making the art. I enjoy going out in spaces and just being 100% myself as much as I could be. And I feel like that's even though it might still be in the back of my head. It's something that's still pushing me forward as an individual. So it's always going to be there, but I feel like it's pushing me forward to create these spaces and these spaces for everyone to enjoy. So yeah.
Yeah, I like the part where you saying that it's always going to be there. Yeah, I don't think you ever kind of like you don't ever get rid of like negative emotions. Like it's like I don't know. I think the acceptance thing is not normal to people. It's like we ain't gonna stop accepting ourselves till we dead, honestly. Because like you hit one level of acceptance and it's like devils now. Um, and it's like, oh, I didn't realize I had to turn towards this thing about that I've been ignoring the last 20 plus years. So it's like just getting used to the fair and getting like the feeling of feeling alone sometimes. And yeah, like just making it a part of the whole experience, just like humanness.
Also not letting that fear like cripple your process too, because a lot of persons will have that fear and think they're presenting as carefree as possible, but a lot of them let that fear lead them in certain spaces. So instead of realizing who they are as a person and what's not, they let the fear drive their mind. So it limits their experience, it limits their interactions, it limits their opportunities, and it just limits them as an individual, and that just stunts their growth. So maybe like even though I have the fear in the back of our head, still don't allow it to limit your evolution as a person. Yes. Okay. Um, uh, I feel like I'm very hopeful in a sense. I feel like when I first moved to Nassau in 2016 from the island, and to be present in space now, I feel like we have grown a lot as people within the space. I feel like as we evolve as people, our society will evolve more and our government will evolve more. When I say that is that as we also have spaces that allow for people to be queer, the Pride Month celebrations, all things like that. All of that is pillars or just stepping stones to get a more accepting Bahamas, and more so a Bahamas that holds where people allows them to be free in these spaces where they cannot in the classroom as pastors, as bank tellers, as individuals. That's all about. So I feel like in the next 10 years, we're going to evolve more. But I feel like as people, we're steadily having more open conversations. I feel like their individual homes are having these conversations and is allowing the openness to seep out into society. So I think we are evolving slowly, but I feel like you can't just say there's no process in a sense.
I'm so happy you went first.
Oh, I try to be optimistic.
Yeah. Um, I my honest opinion is that the kids are getting it. However, comma the people in power, they ain't gonna get it. I don't have no hope there. I have hope there. I released it. Like I know it's like we all in this little bubble sharing this space. We want to keep having conversations within our little bubble because it is frustrating to talk to people outside of our bubble because they remain within their ignorance. They remain within their lack of tolerance. I truly don't want to accept if it's gonna come with just breadcrumbs. I don't want it, right? Um, so I think like the kids are getting it. The kids are deconstructing this thing. Like the kids are like sitting down and questioning like, what does gender actually mean? Why must a man take out the garbage and why? It's just like, why does that make sense? Like I have a lot of hope for like, yeah, like the little kids in my life, my nieces, my nephews, my little cousins, and all of that. Like they're getting it. Like that, at least I their kid, their things I showing them, and they're like, oh, okay, right. Um, but I have no hope for anyone else outside of I truly don't. Just because I think that Bahamians just like stubborn, and we think we know everything, and we think what we know is the ultimate. And yeah, that's just my honest opinion. I have no hope, and I've released it. And I think if like kids of today want to stay within the Bahamas, find you a circle and like, you know what I mean? Make that your mecca.
I don't want to come across as a person be like, oh my god, you're giving me a handshake and allow me to cross the street as a queer person. No, when I made my statement earlier, I'm saying that going back to you saying the kids are all right as an educator, and I I I've seen firsthand without even having these conversations with them. I've seen firsthand that they are deconstructing everything that their parents are like teaching them, like everything they're questioning and they're identifying as who they want to identify as. They are not trying to follow this line. They don't care to hear what you have to say if you were something, whatever. I know a lot of my students personally that follow me on social media. They you would you would expect them to riot and go and be like, "Oh my god, this is so and so, is this that, and the next thing," but they literally will come in my classroom. They uh, embrace me as an individual, and that kind of made me feel overwhelmed in a sense. Because in education, you kind of suppress who you are as an individual to get a job done and to stay out of the eyesight of people that hired you and what's not. But having children that you teach be inspired and having children that you teach want to have these conversations, they look up to you and they see you as a figure that they want to model after. They don't care about all of this rhetoric or what's not. They are understanding. So in the next 10 years, I feel like they are ready to just overthrow everything. So I feel like there is some sort of hope as an educator working towards too. But like you said, there's no hope for current older people in government, because like they are just stubborn. They want to hear what you have to say, but they already have this notion in the back of their head what they think it should be. So they're hearing you, but not understanding, and they don't care how you're feeling or experiencing. So they just write it off. It's like, okay, so and put it to the side. We have other things to worry about. So what I feel like as time evolves, the children that are going to be our age within these spaces, they are ready to overthrow. They're ready to step up and allow everyone to just coexist in these spaces. I'm excited. Yes.
Okay, Conte's mic is on.
Hi guys. Testing. No, is this on? Oh, okay. All right. You just give them a minute. Guys, so first of all, I know both of you personally. I'm very happy to see you here. It was a very fruitful discussion. Um, when I think about this particular moment right here and the exhibition that's happening, I think a lot not only about our performance as Bahamians, um, but particularly performing our perceived Africanness. For example, with Ruich's paintings, the diving, the perceived notion of Black men, stealth, and with Jody about Black women being jolly and nurturing. I think a lot about Africanness, and think a lot as well about the misconceptions of gender expression, that's what it means to be someone of African descent. Um, so I guess my question is, what are your thoughts on that balancing act of we've talked about religion and society, but the idea that you need to be a specific way as an African in terms of expressing your gender?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, like being like a spiritual person, well, growing up like religious, but also still having to like, because there's a balancing act with like religiosity and spirituality. And I think most of the people in this room that I know balance that religion versus like spirit, or the spiritual. And so like knowing very early on that I was queer, but like not really coming into it until like late teens. And then like having all of the whole like what I went through. Um and being have an opportunity to like leave and see like it's not a struggle. Obviously they like being where I was, which was the UK, like first world country, so privilege, right? But like being around people and like seeing like it ain't a struggle for them to live in. I can have that too. I can embody that as well. And then coming back home, like I can just live, but still not feeling like comfortable in my skin. Like I really had to equip myself with knowledge of like my ancestry. So like understanding like my spirituality through the gaze of like African spirituality and realizing like a lot of our gods were queer. Like a lot of our gods were androgynous, a lot of our gods were feminine and masculine and like not at all right. Like realizing that this thing ain't like really it's really just like research. Um and me kind of like sitting with the reality of my existence has always been and how I myself always was and like who am I to even question this? Like who am I to even say this is invalid? In a sense. So I guess like the balancing act for me was like a releasing what I thought I guess specific like gender, like femininity, masculinity was and embrace the idea that if my gods who I believe in could be any and all and none at all, so can I.
And to briefly add to that, I feel like it just goes back to unlearning everything that you thought you or you thought was correct, and especially when it comes to Christianity and religion. And whatnot. I feel like early on that fear was instilled in me that I cannot be as fully queer as I want to be and have a relationship with Christ and have that personal relationship. And I coming into my adulthood, I came to realize that I could be as queer as I want to be, and God sits down and in who I am. So it's still going back to learning everything that society or your situations and your family structure taught you to understand and find a balance within yourself to know that this is my truth, this is my understanding, and this is what is happening.
My mic is
That's okay.
but we
I'm
need
going
it
to
on the
repeat question.
okay, sure.
I guess the question is for both of you. I guess more for you because you mentioned that you okay. I was wondering if that experience allowed you to explore your non-binariness. What effect the change of context had on your exploration? That's my first question. And the other question is, you mentioned that you had pastors in your family, and I just find it interesting about how queerness is somehow only Bible and Christian. How do you respond to that?
Um Oh, how the UK has like influenced like the exploration of like my gender fluidity. Um, yeah. So like summer 2020, when we were all like locked down, we didn't really have nothing to do with turn towards ourselves. I did that. I turned towards myself with two people who I like deem as like my lesbian moms. One of them was like YouTube programs, and they presented as like androgynous. So we would have like these conversations about just like what does gender even mean, and these we were all like assigned female. So it was just kind of like what does gender even mean? Like how do we kind of like show up in society now? Um, I think like that whole summer of just like and these were I lived with therapists, so like you could imagine the doing for like the 3 months. We were like we were up to like 5 o'clock in the morning just talking. Like and I appreciated the hell out of it because it was like you don't know. Like they were like every time you talk Evante, it's like something new, like you've been through a lot. And I'm like, you don't realize how much you've been through till you start talking. Like you don't realize how much you've been through till you start telling your story. And then obviously like getting the language for things that so they need to like this is probably this and that and that. And I'm like, I feel a bit overwhelmed by all these diagnoses, guys. But I appreciate that you care and you're just trying to like help me to understand like why I was so stuck, right? Like so I really was stuck. And summer 2020 like unstuck me, right? And I think like being able to like wear my roommate's clothes and kind of like go like thrift shopping and like really be immersive in their culture over there. I think Manchester's like the third biggest like city in the UK. And then I lived in the gay village, so it was like it was like cherry on top of the whipped cream. I really was being like firm in my meanness. And I think that was like the start of my journey. You know, maybe started to me realizing like, oh, I don't have to be super, 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 super fat. Femmes who do it, love the hell out of y'all. Y'all are beautiful. But um, like I think that for me was like when I realized like I don't have to be this super, 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 super thing. Like, so I think like Jody explained to me, like she was like, I noticed like what you're doing this year, like you're on one side of the pendulum, and then you were like on the next side, and then you like find the balance. And I'm like, I appreciate you seeing me. Because yeah, it has been like intentional. Like it has been intentional in me, like trying to find like the balance. Cause like, yeah, last year was a super like masculine year for me. And then like before that it was like super feminine. I was just like, I can be kind of like whatever. So the UK definitely like helped in terms of that. And then your next question was sorry.
Very fundamentalist claims that queerness is anti-Jesus.
Yeah, I would say it's untrue. Yeah, yeah. Um, I have tried to, but like I have like I said, like fundamentalists, like family members. So like I like I mentioned earlier, like yeah, my grandfather was a deacon, my father was a bishop, my mother's a bishop, my aunts and uncles are pastors, my cousins are pastors. Like I come from a long line of like very religious family, right? My mommy's a bishop, so yeah, I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. Um, I so like when they were having like the thread on Twitter about like how like humans go to Bible, like I know my Bible and how they could have joined the thread. I didn't have any funny names in my opinion. Um, I would say that it's super like in conversation I have tried to, but like they like kind of hell bent. So I've learned my boundary. I'm not going to that's my boundary. Right? And I'm also not going to force you to tolerate or accept anything like you are that you are. I am where I am. But in terms of just like queerness being anti-Jesus or anti-Christian, it's like super untrue. Like Jesus is in a garden in Gethsemane with 12 men praying. perceive that how you want to perceive it. Perceive that how you want to perceive it. Who kissed Jesus on the cheek? Like it's just like I don't know. And because in my perspective, queerness is holy and spiritual and beautiful. All of these things I perceive as queerness, but like people would be like it's blasphemy. But I'm like, you want to say like this is blasphemy? Like I don't, So I would say that it's super untrue. Also, I would totally recommend this book that Jody, my friend, was so kind. I've been tweeting about this all week, so Queer Magic. If you are queer and like just wanting to have an understanding of like spirituality from around the globe, whether you have African, South Asian descent, whatever the stuff like, it has everything. It even have queerness about like Australians and all that, like how they came into their like religiosity and like the little legends and myths. Like this is a book that literally is so transformative and super affirming. And it's like you could even read like just like I was reading it and I have like a million Bibles in my because PK and I was reading it and I was going back to scripture and I was like, I missed the whole like so Paul was there just like ridiculing people, but he himself probably was. Like I think that if you really want to like kind of like get into like the understanding of the Bible or just any faith in general, like it really is just about interpretation. But to say like it's like anti-queer, it's just untrue. It's just untrue because queerness has existed for weeks, millennia.
Something, right? We guess yeah, this is not just really for both of you. Talk about those movies where because can you describe that and how you talk about the process of getting unstuck? Describe being stuck and then the process of unstuck and the people who help you. Because that's how you said it. So I'm thinking about who's that process and describe being stuck for all those years. And, yeah.
Um, yeah. So this week, like y'all, I super young, but I celebrated like a decade of me being out of high school. Right? I super young. Um, so yeah, like it's been a decade of me being out of high school, and I like broke down into tears because I was like, if I had not made the radical decision to say, fuck you people who keep like teasing me and treating me like I am shit, and like I had like done the whole like natural thing. This is like when everybody was like Afrocentric and all of that, and like I was getting teased in fake COP. I getting teased. Are we not adults there? If I had not made the radical decision to be like, forget it, and let me go and actually find my friends, I do not think that I would be where I am today because like start to realize how like every point of the journey really is just a piece to the puzzle, right? And so like I want to say from like 10 years ago, it was a stuckness that I just felt uncomfortable in and I needed to move. And so it goes back again to just like the feeling, right? So this practice of embodiment is like I feel uncomfortable in my body. What is going on? Right? I need to do something about this. Okay, there's something that's fine, not a friend group. I find a friend group that is the most loving, care, and nurturing people that I'm still friends with today. They introduced me to these other friends, and then these other friends, and then this community, and then that community, and then all of a sudden, like, we're talking. And so I think, like, the feeling of stuckness for me was just like, yeah, it was kind of like feeling super like caved in and my like I guess that's the best way to put it. Like it's like the not self was so fast around me. And I think the only way out is through and like through like just literal like being a friend because in order to help me realize like I had to learn how to be a friend as well. Being a friend, so meeting people like Jody, meeting people like yeah, meeting people like Dia who apparently know me all my life. Right. and so on and so on. Like, I think that at this point, I feel like you know what I'm saying, like in terms of just like identifying like where is the discomfort with myself and like really making that radical decision to move. When I got unstuck, um, I think like that's when like the light bulb like clicked off, and then like my advocacy started. So then like through meeting like my COB friend, I was able to meet somebody like Alicia Wallace who like like completely like transformed how I see the world. Meeting like Aaron Green, right? And it's like, oh, y'all existing and y'all being yourselves, but also y'all care about other people. So this ain't just like my freedom ain't for you to get free. Like I gotta free everybody else too. But the balance of that is I gotta free people who want to get free. Right? So yeah, I think like yeah, this journey and this life thing is just super beautiful and just super interesting. And I think like unstuck.
Well, I think for me, growing up on the family island, I was exposed to social media quite early. So secretly using the computer and searching up all of these things about queer people and what's not, and seeing these images of people being free, I internalized that and thought that I'm supposed to be in society. So internalizing all of this, this media in a sense of how it should be, how you should talk, how you should dress. If you want to identify as non-binary, if you identify as a gay man, if you identify as femme, mask, whatever. And I feel like that, in a sense, trapped me when I moved to New Providence and going to COB at the time and then the University of Bahamas because I came with this preconceived notion that, okay, I have this freedom, this is how I should dress, and then you're interacting and meeting queer people like Deandra in these spaces. So like Deandra was like what and it's I must say Deandra, people like Deandra, people like there's an organization called Cash UB that I went to the first meeting, like, my first year back after I think after 2016 I took a break and I came back in 2017. I went to that first meeting and everyone there embraced me and they embraced a part of me that I didn't even know existed. So it allowed me to have this freedom to express myself and this freedom to have this open conversation about who I am as a queer individual, who I am as non-binary. I want to express myself, and you have these people in the community that are literally holding your hand and actually trying to help you navigate yourself while navigating your interpersonal connections with people. And then going to spaces like there was a call out City and experiencing the nightlife and going to the pub and just going to these places that welcome for our people and seeing people be free and understanding it and taking it in and having that conversation with yourself that okay, this is this is who I am, this is who I want, this is what I want to be. So I feel like as I evolved more and I the work within myself and kind of learned everything that I thought I wanted to be and what's not, I feel like that helped me to move forward, and I think that allowed me to dive fully into what's not and having these outlets to freely express myself through words and the way I dress and the way I speak, advocacy, and having like these spaces and sitting at tables with people and having these open, candid conversations. And I feel like that propelled me to fully embrace the space that I know that I deserve, and also the spaces for other people. Like you said, your freedom, you're not just fighting for your freedom, you're fighting for the freedom of everyone. But in the sense of showing up is allowing other persons to feel like they can show up as well. So I feel like that becoming unstuck and unlearning, and I think the whole journey is you're learning every day. You're learning every minute. I'm learning sitting here having a conversation with you. I'm sitting here learning from you guys in the audience. So I feel like it's a constant evolution as a person. So
That Hi. So, hello. uh,
Please, this is about you too. Just the exhibition has a lot of themes in tourism, and it's a quite a critique on tourism. And I read in Dr. James' dissertation, that was actually the first time that I saw someone say sun, sea, and sex within the context of the kind of products that we um, market for touristic consumption. So there's this inherent like exoticism and over sexualization of our people from the other. So I'm wondering how has or if this inherent exoticism and this inherent um, expectation of like hypersexuality in touristic spaces hasn't met you, and how was that engagement, and how do you navigate that kind of those kinds of engagements?
The first thing that's coming to my mind is the sense of, I feel like when I think of a sun, sea, and sex, I feel like I don't more so think we're selling sex part. When I say the sex part, I feel like it's also like we're selling our bodies for an experience without having that body to body experience. So if we're selling ourselves and our mindsets and our strength and everything for this experience for tourists to come in. So I feel like when we think sun, sea, and sex, I feel like it's more so our body and our mental health and what's not, and this whole exploration of just pushing past your body in a sense to put food on the table and provide this unrealistic hope to this picturesque environment for tourists and what's not. So that's my understanding so far. I'll jump back.
Um, yeah, I think like the question was around like, hypersexuality within like a touristic sense. Um, yeah, I think it's so interesting being like a dark skinned like woman presenting person and like being here and then putting your body as like okay, so like I used to work in a specific place earlier this year that I used to tweet about. You know where I used to work. And it is literally in like the heart of the tourism industry. So like when I say like when everybody used to be attracted to me, I was surprised who was it. It was like what? Like I'm very confused by this, but it was primarily like white men who don't sound like me, so white touristic men. And I guess like a lot of that made me uncomfortable. So it was like, do I stop like because I like in my family now, right? So it's like, do I stop with like the shorts and like the should I do like the oversized hoodie? Like should I like my brother's closet? Like how do I want I guess like protect myself? So I guess it does greet me in very like strange ways because I never thought it would meet me in that space. Honestly. I just here doing a job and like you literally coming out of nowhere. Um But I like so I guess to bring it back to non-binary, this is like, should I then lean into my androgyny hair? And I did that for a day, and literally I was like, nah, like this like who attracted me is who attracted me. I know what I like, it is what it is. Kinda. And then like obviously you like you get when you travel. I didn't really get this when I was in the UK. But, like I think everybody have the experience of going to the States and like people repeat oh your skin's so smooth. You know what I mean? Just out of the way kind of like comments. Um, and I think like when you say when people ask you like where you from, say like they trying to engage you in that conversation, there is that sense of like, oh now you are like Miss Bahamas, like actually like marketing for the Bahamas, and then like I would have to like kill it and be like, I am just one behavior in this place. Kinda. But yeah, there is like a hypersexuality that does like greet me in just very strange spaces. If that makes sense.
I don't know why fetishization is coming to my mind because I feel like it's all hypersexuality and what's not. I feel like it's always going to create us in these places. People are always going to look at us as an experience. So they are very much interested in how we look and want to experience in our body to get this human experience. So they feel like they're here just for sunshine and sea and sex. Understand that. So, so I feel like it fetishization and the dark skin and what's not. I feel like just I feel like yeah. So I feel like walking downtown in a t-shirt and like a shorts, toms and what's not. I've had people stop me and ask me the most weirdest like questions that had nothing to do with anything. And, uh, and then they will like try to like walk with me in the direction I'm walking. And I'm just like, I'm on to you. You cannot trick me. So, like, I'm understanding that, so I feel like it's always going to meet us because I feel like they're seeing, they're getting some sun and see, but I feel like they have to get this personal body to body experience with like us as black people to get the full on experience. And if you, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but if you frequent the apps, like a lot of queer individuals do, you do have a lot of tourists on these apps that are looking for this full-on experience with their premium Mandingo. So they're not leaving the cruise port until they have this experience. So, 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 they, so, so like, even with that too, like I had to fully remove myself from all of the dating apps and all of that and just suppress myself from all of that because it was just more so they just was looking for nothing more than to feel you as an individual and not feel you emotionally. So I think that's with the suntan and seeing the sex. Yeah, so I feel like that they want that part of it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Yes. Until you're already in Bahama. Yeah. Maybe iron it. I mean, I, I think I think I I posted a tweet about this context of the tweet, but I feel like we all try to sell ourselves short, like for this experience to quite frankly the white man who's a tourist. Yes, and I feel like it's more so. I don't know. They have this mindset that oh we gotta get out the hood, so I'm gonna parade and um uh, cater to this man, and he's gonna pay the bills and maybe fly me out and put me in the house and what's not. And I'm gonna bring my friend along for the ride. The friend who I'm going to meet is also having a friend. So I don't want to go with but I have someone from my friend along with me. So it's more so like this preconceived notion of I have to struggle and hustle for the satisfaction of one person. And so I feel like that's also like a personal thing with people more so with self-esteem and what's not, and knowing that I'm just the gratification or the one night stand of this individual who's only going to give you $100 to go buy McDonald's or something. So yeah, so but I'm gonna say about sex work, sure. But in the same sense, you don't have to limit yourself to providing these experiences for people that are not going to give you like 10 minutes. So
But
yeah,
if you want to do that, if you
yeah, sex work is sex work. We support sex work. Yeah.
Good evening. Yes. So for those joining us for live broadcast, thank you for tuning in. This will come to the end of our live discussion. We will continue the discussion after we present the live portion of it. So thank you. Valentine Act will be on you until July 1st. You can find more information at www.turngallery.com. Okay, thank you and good night.